Afternoon. Welcome to the conversation here we're having about the March for Mercy on April 17th in Nashville. Some of us are going to be gathering together to call on the governor of Tennessee to not execute a man. If you can imagine that in the spring of 2022, we're still having to ask for our government to not kill people in our country. Well, it's true, and it's what we're up to, and it's what we're having to do. And so I'm Doug Pagitt, joined here with Shane Claiborne, Abe Bonowitz, three of us, also part of three organizations that are part of this effort. Red Letter Christians, Death Penalty Action, and then there's a fourth organization that I have now forgotten the name of. Abe, what was that group?
No exceptions.
No exceptions. All right. Well, Abe, tell us what this is. What's the what's the March for Mercy Nashville of an April 17th event about?
Sure. So, it comes out of the desire to bring a message to government and bring a message to the public that there needs to be space for mercy, and that we don't need executions in order to hold people accountable for their crimes and to be safe from people that maybe that have done things in the past. And it comes out of this letter that Shane can tell us more about, that was written by the prisoners, just asking the governor to come and pray with them on death row. And that's all it asks. And you can see in the picture that's here, the person in front carrying the white placard is carrying a big blow up of that. So when the governor refused to receive that letter, we decided we would march it there. And that's what this picture is from that first march. And we carried the letter to the Capitol and then delivered it to the governor's office. And at that time, we felt so empowered by the event that we decided to just do it every time there's another execution scheduled. And we decided to just say it's going to be on the Sunday before the scheduled execution, Thursdays at 6 p.m. local time, and we march on the Sunday before, and it just happens that this time they scheduled it right after Easter. So we get to march on Easter. And, being Jewish myself, I was like thinking we'd have to figure out the schedule. And I said to all these people who are prison ministry people, what are we going to do? It's Easter. We would never have do something like this on a major Jewish holiday. So I just assumed, and I had to go back and negotiate with her. I'm not going to be here this Easter. So that's what it is. We're marching on Easter, and it's going to be amazing because of what we're adding to it, because it's a special day. And we'll hear more about that today, but that's the nutshell of it. It's a 9-mile walk. It's a mostly flat path, or with minor, except for the last, 150 yards or so is up a big hill. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it's pretty flat and easy, and we take stops, and we're going to be stopping even more on this one because we're going to do the Stations of the Cross, and we've got those paintings again. Y'all can talk more about that, and then at the end, we usually have some sort of rally, and of course this time we end up at Legislative Plaza. It's a big open plaza right across the street from the Capitol, and we'll have an Easter worship service. Mm-hmm. And we just learned today, actually, that Pastor Kevin Burns, who is on death row but an ordained minister and part of one of the churches that's involved in this, is going to give the sermon, or whatever you would call it, that day. So it's going to be super powerful. And it's always connective. You meet on the road and walking, or being along if you can't walk. We'll have a support vehicle, and people could, follow in their cars if they want to, for those who need that. It's just a powerful being together and creating something that hopefully helps us change the world.
I think it's interesting, Abe, you said that you didn't know if Easter would be an appropriate time for people to gather together for a march, which I wondered it too. I've been a pastor for a lot of years, and I thought, I don't know, would people want to travel, or would they be able to give up holiday? And it's a curious thought that you have, right? Like, can we allow the holiday that is in the Christian tradition a response to an execution? That I think Shannon might have heard this phrase from you first, that the resurrection is one of the great condemnations of an execution. Like, talk about it not working, right, and showing how feeble it is and how broken the idea is, that the resurrection is, the narrative of it is that kind of punishment is not at all, God's plans. So resurrection is the alternative to it. Speaking of Jesus's, that it's curious that we would say, well, could people do that on the day when you're remembering the overcoming of an execution? Would people get together to try to prevent a future execution? And the more I thought about it, I thought it's the ideal day. Fortunately, I don't have church obligations that Sunday, so I could leave. I know that a lot of other church leaders feel really torn because that's, an important day for them to do things. But anybody who can show up in Nashville outside the Riverbend prison to walk all the way to the state capitol, those 9 miles, or any part of it, we'd love to have you. And I also think people could walk in their own places, in their own spots. Shane, what's how are you thinking about this?
Yeah, well, we'd all like to be eating Cadbury eggs and chocolate bunnies and whatnot, but and there's plenty of time to do that. But I think that what this reminds us of is how good Christians are at missing the whole point of Jesus's death. There are 2 executions scheduled this week after Easter, one of them in Tennessee and one of them in Texas, both by governors that will probably be in worship services on Easter worshiping Jesus, who said, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." And we will have that verse, on our t-shirts as we walk. But the backdrop of this, Doug, is Tennessee actually brought the electric chair back as a valid legal method of execution during Holy Week. So what we many Christians call Maundy Thursday, the Thursday before Easter several years ago, is when Tennessee brought the electric chair back. So we're very good at missing the whole point of the mercy and love of Jesus. And so that's what we want to remember. And this is not like 2 different issues, the death penalty and Easter Sunday, the resurrection of Jesus. These are very bound up together. Yeah.
Yeah. Abe, say a little bit about your own experience of the importance of these kinds of demonstrations. You run a group called Death Penalty Action, which does a lot of people moving and being action-oriented around this. I know a lot of people feel like, what does a march accomplish, or what does carrying some flags, or in this case, a demonstration of taking the artistic rendition of the classic Stations of the Cross that are created by men on death row in Tennessee, where Oscar Smith is, who's going to be executed if the governor has his way, governor of Tennessee has his way, that carrying those signs, but what does all of that kind of action do? What, in your experience as someone who's organized, not just these walks on highways, but online meetings and events in state houses and at the Supreme Court and, in Washington, D.C., all over, give people, a little vision for why these things matter and what's going on with them.
Sure. I'd like to look at these things as having 2 audiences. One audience is the public audience, so the people that see us and wonder what we're up to, and that's why we make sure we're very careful about signage and being clear in the message and making it big enough that somebody driving by could see it. And maybe, if we're fortunate, the media covers us and we have, and our story gets told a little bit more. So that's the public audience, with the message that the death penalty is wrong and we don't need to have executions to be safe, and all that. But internally, it's just as important. For many of us, what's super important is being together with other people of like minds, and especially still coming out of the pandemic. Uh, that's extra important, is being together to do something. But it's in this, it's like going to church. It's like a spiritual practice, because you're doing something, whether it's fasting or walking or marching or chanting or praying together. All of this is actually a prayer in a way. And so it's a rejuvenation of the spirit, and it's a way for people to 4 days later, they're going to be killing a guy in all of our names, and some of us will be there at that vigil as well. When we start, you can see in the picture right there behind us is the prison, Riverbend Maximum Security Institution. And when we start, we gather in a parking lot that's very close by, and we walk up to start at the prison, and then walk to the Capitol. Each person gets something, I think, a little bit different out of it. I personally, as an organizer, I'm usually involved in running around and making sure things are right, and taking pictures and all that sort of thing, and answering people's questions. So I get less of that spiritual connectivity until afterwards, when I get to sit and think and reflect on it, about what we've created. We're going to have more people helping this time, so maybe I'll be able to be more engaged. But what's going to be interesting is some of the people that are coming are have been doing this work for a very long time. And this is work where we're coming up into a place where there's been a slowdown in executions, and now we're going to see a spike. So we've got these 2 executions, not just on the same day, but at the very same time. Then Melissa Lucio is set up for execution on the 27th. We're all hopeful that that's not going to happen. At April 29th, as the prisoner there gets to choose, just like they get to choose in Tennessee, lethal injection or electrocution. In South Carolina, the choice is firing squad or electrocution. And that's on the 29th. Then there's an execution in Missouri on the 3rd. And then on May 3rd, and then on May 9th, be the first execution in almost 10 years in Arizona. If that one goes forward, that guy gets to choose between lethal injection and the gas chamber, right? Which you all may know about, because that was the case in Texas where a prisoner had his execution stayed, because Texas did not want to allow his pastor to be in the death chamber with him, praying out loud, putting hands on him, laying hands, and he challenged that as a violation of his First Amendment rights to freedom of religion. And the Supreme Court said, yes, we agree with you. You get to have your pastor praying out loud, laying hands while we kill you. And now the floodgates are going to open there. So we're going to see this spike in executions. And I should also note Oklahoma, where there's currently a challenge on lethal injection, which ultimately is going to get, dismissed, I think. That's my prediction. But that's holding up the execution of 31 prisoners who have exhausted their appeals, allegedly, if you believe what the state says. 31 people ready to get execution dates just as soon as this technicality gets pushed aside. So it's also a time to gird our loins, to be together and spiritually connect and spiritually say to each other, I'm ready for this struggle, and we're in it together.
Shane, you and I have been to the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution. You've been there more times, Can you talk about the men there, and can you say something about the artwork that they've created that we're going to have the privilege of carrying along with us?
Yeah, and as I was listening to Abe, I thought of, I think there's an old punk rock song. I don't know if y'all have heard it. It says, "Sometimes I protest to change the world, and sometimes I protest to keep the world from changing me." And I think that's, part of the witness is to invite other people to imagine alternatives to killing, to show that killing is wrong, but it's also to keep ourselves sensitized to what our state is doing. And we're very alone. We're an anomaly in the world when it comes to countries that are still carrying out executions. So it's important to remember that. And proximity makes all the difference in the world, right, Doug? Like that's part of why even the walk itself is a reminder that it is not a long way from where these executions happen, and the governor's office that gives the green light. And so I started visiting the guys at Riverbend Unit 2 on death row like 10 years ago or something. And one of my first interactions was I had just bumped into the governor kind of randomly. We were speaking at the same conference, but I bumped into him and I talked to him a little bit and said, I'm praying for you. I really hope that you'll, not allow any executions to go forward, especially as a Christian, as a man of faith. This was the former governor. But then I came to death row and I asked the guys, what would you say if you had a chance to talk to the governor? And that, without even missing a beat, it was Kevin Burns, I think, the guy that'll be preaching on Easter, who said, we'd invite the governor to come pray with us and listen to what Jesus has done in our lives. And we really think that could change a lot of things. But even that proximity, I think that's what we're really inviting people to do, is realize that these are children of God, made in the image of God. And one of the things at the heart of the gospel for any of us who call ourselves Christians is this conviction that no one is beyond redemption. Mm-hmm. And there's guys at Unit 2 that maintain their innocence, just like many folks on death row. And there are other folks that are very forthcoming about what they did, the terrible things that they did, and what they're trying to do to try to heal those wounds that they created. So these images were a part of Jeannie Alexander and others that will be with us on the march. They have created a space at Riverbend where the men on death row can have some sense of dignity and community. I mean, even in a really terrible place, that they're able to create art and things together. So these images that some people may have seen online or at Red Letter Christians, we have, large posters of the 15 Stations of the Cross, which the church has done for hundreds of years. But I don't know many renditions that were Stations of the Cross painted by men who are condemned to die, and they painted them on death row. So that's what we'll be carrying, and we'll bring those to the Capitol on Easter at 4:00 for a service there. So it's going to be really powerful.
I mean, I think it's just it is a real story that you're sharing here, Shane, because I remember being there, with the men from Unit 2 and gathered around this table that they were around, and how they were speaking of the transformation that had happened in their own lives. And certainly that's not true of everyone. And we're not somehow saying, well, if a person has a spiritual experience, while they're incarcerated, then they should be granted mercy. Everyone should be granted mercy. But the narrative that matches the Christian story of a group of men gathered around a table where someone's been condemned to death, and then they're going to make an artistic representation of how they identify with the story of Jesus. That's what people are trying to do with the Easter story and with your Christian faith, every day of the year. So if Christianity is a motivating narrative, I think, for people, then this is the right time on Easter, whether you're doing it at home or you come to Nashville, or maybe Nashville is your home, that you raise your own voice that says, to proclaim the resurrection is to proclaim the defeat of the execution. You don't get to hold to the execution and then hold to the resurrection. It's the point of it is to make a shame of it. I'm going to be a little preachy as a old preacher here, but this is what Paul says, that it's through the resurrection that the cross makes the death penalty to be shown as the shameless and powerless, useless act that it is. It's just unwarranted ending of life. There is no benefit that comes from this. Abe, you can talk about all the people you've been involved with who, are family members that we're not protected. You can go through the whole list of reasons. I mean, I'm so anti-death penalty, it's hard for me to even give real validity, to the stories that really animate so many people in the death penalty. But to me, the issue is not if Oscar Smith, who is scheduled to be executed, deserves to die for his actions. Somebody can make that argument, I guess, if they want to. I think the question is, does the state of Tennessee have the right to kill him? And do we want to say as Americans that our government has the right and the moral obligation to kill someone else? I think not. I think you can totally say that, Oscar Smith's conviction means that there's consequence for his life. One of those is not that you start chopping off a limb a day for the rest of his life, right? We don't do that. We don't torture the man. We don't take things out on his family. There's a whole set of things we don't do to people, regardless of what crime they have committed or been convicted of. There's a set of behaviors that we say would be inappropriate for us in our society. Executing someone should be on the list of things that are inappropriate. Now, even though I think most people in our country believe that, that's not where our laws are in all of our states, and it's not where the law is at the federal level. So we really have some work to do to address these issues, and to raise a voice each and every time is important. And the fact that, as you said, Abe, that this lands as a regular practice to raise up voices before an execution on the Sunday before the execution, that in this particular case, that lands on April 17th, hopefully doesn't keep people away from caring about this. Hopefully it adds a level of context to it for those for whom the Easter story is actually something important to them.
Yeah, well, we had a conversation about this, those of us who are organizing it, and we talked about how actually there's many people who are disenchanted with the spirituality at their church or their house of worship, and they relish some idea to put their faith into action, and that's what this is an opportunity to do. And I want to note, it's also Passover. It'd be the second day of Passover after the night before was the second Seder, and it's also Ramadan, in the middle of Ramadan. So there's a lot of different spiritual practices that'll be happening. Of advisors along with you two,
Yeah.
and is also the founder of L'chaim, which means to life, L'chaim, Jews Against the Death Penalty. He commented on one of the Facebook postings here, I think on Death Penalty Action. Yeah, he said, this was back when I was talking about why we do it. He said, when Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel was asked upon his return from the 1965 Selma to Montgomery voting rights march with Dr. Martin Luther King, they asked him, did you find time to pray? And he famously answered, I prayed with my feet. And I'll also note that Mike is saying that we stand with you, and our birthday gift to Oscar Smith of a death penalty book by interfaith clergy was rejected by the prison, which said that it would lead to anarchy and lawlessness, and that's pretty funny. I've got by people who stood outside the prison in Terre Haute when we were doing all the federal executions. Let's see if we can see this. It's just people of faith writing about their opposition of the death penalty, and that was rejected. So we all have to do everything we can in whatever way we can to raise our voices and put our faith into action. And this is just one of those opportunities. And Doug, I love your idea of encouraging people who can't be there in Nashville with us to do something locally. And we're going to figure out how to promote that and start talking about that too.
Yeah, 1 o'clock, the march will start Eastern time. No, Central time. Nashville's in Central time. So 1 p.m. Central time, the march will start at the Riverbend, out near the Riverbend a penitentiary. He can't be on the property, and this wouldn't be there. And then we'll have a service at 4 p.m. at the state capitol. So in that window of time, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central, we invite people around the country to go on your own walk. I don't know, maybe you just decide you're going to walk with some family members, or maybe your church is going to have an outing, or you invite a few people, or you get on a phone call or a FaceTime with some people around the country who care about these issues, and you do your own walk and say your own statement and raise it. Maybe you make a social media post out of that, or just send a text message to some other people to recruit them into thinking about these issues as well, and to allow this, Easter to be a time of commentary and condemnation of executions. I think one of the things that to be from the Christian tradition that you realize with the execution of Jesus is that when you utilize these systems of execution, it's very possible that you're going to even execute the very Son of God. And I would encourage every governor in every state and every president of every country and every dictator to realize when you execute someone, you are executing a child of God. The story that we see from the Christian tradition is that what we see in Jesus, we're meant to see in one another. That's the whole point of the story. So we shouldn't only be traumatized when the innocent Son of God is executed in the Christian story. We should be shaken every time we use the power of the government to kill a child of God of any kind and from anywhere. Hey, we're also going to have the common hymnal people with us. Shane, do you want to say something about who they are and what they've been up to, and we'll play some of the music that'll be part of this march and this walk?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, these are musicians and songwriters and artists from all over the place, all over the country, maybe even some international folks, but they create songs together. And you can see their work, on their website at Common Hymnal. But we just did an event with them last week at Riverside around the anniversary of Dr. King's assassination and his Riverside speech. Absolutely beautiful. And they're writing songs that we can sing while we march. Songs in the tradition of the spirituals and the freedom songs. And so I think we might have a glimpse of one of those that we'll be singing on Sunday, on Easter Sunday.
We out here. We out here. Love is what we're fighting for. We ain't got to die no more. Love is what we're fighting for. We ain't got to die no more. Love is what we're fighting for. We ain't got to die no more. Love is what we're fighting for.
That's a great one. I'm thrilled to be walking some of those 9 miles and saying that song, that love is what we're fighting for. It's the real question is, can a society operate out of a context of love for one another? Can our criminal justice system, can our military efforts, can our political system and our economic system, can it actually organize itself out of a love impulse in all that it does? Can love become the criterion by which we operate? Or is that only possible for individuals, for families, for special sub-communities of society? And at some point it gets to be, society is too complicated, and we just have to, ask that great old question, what's love got to do with it? I think love can be the driving force. And if you do, then I think, one has to say, I think to love your neighbor and to love one another includes not killing each other. And personally, I think that means you don't kill each other irrespective of what someone has done. Everyone I know would say, don't kill the innocent. Of course, we don't kill the innocent. That's universal. Then we're going to have a debate about, should we kill those that you consider not innocent? Well, that's an interesting conversation. And when you're on Easter Sunday, that's a good one to have. It's a good conversation to have, is do we have a different obligation to those that we consider not innocent? Because what it will do is make you ask yourself, on what standards and by what violation is someone no longer considered innocent? So I can't wait to walk on that road and to say love is what we're fighting for. And if people want to know what the alternative to the death penalty is, I don't know. Love's a pretty good starting point. We're gonna play one more of their songs. But Abe, Shane, you want to say anything about that one?
Well, this one, I think the one that we're going to hear now is another collaboratively written song. There's lots of great songwriters, right? Yara Allen with the Poor People's Campaign has written, somebody's been hurting my brother and it's been happening way too long and I can't be silent anymore. And we were talking about that together with Common Hymnal, and they've crafted a few songs that were kind of inspired by that. So I think that's the next one we're going to hear.
We out here. We out here. Brother, sister, I see ya. I see ya. Brother, sister, I hear ya. I hear ya. Sister, I feel ya. I feel ya. I feel ya. Brother, sister, come, come with us. 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 Come with us, 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 come with us.
Yeah, that might be a pretty good place to leave that invitation, right? They were saying, come with us. Come with us. Maybe you can come for a day. Maybe you can come from your own town. Maybe you can have your voice echoing in your ear like mine is. Maybe you can have their voice echoing in your ears. Maybe you guys aren't hearing me twice, but I sure am.
I'm hearing it.
Why don't you guys talk first? Let me see if I can figure this out.
Well, yeah, we also want to be organizing between these executions. No one wants to have an event, just around when someone's getting executed. So there's a lot of stuff that we can be doing every day, calling. And for those of us that call ourselves Christians, I want to invite you, not to be private about your faith, but write the governors, write the legislators, because many of the people who are supporting these executions proclaim the same faith as we do. So say that, right after Easter, there's a glaring contrast, but there's no good time to kill anybody. There's no good way to kill anybody. And so let's speak that mercy and that love that we see in Jesus and invite our politicians and these Christian governors that literally have the power over life and death to show mercy and know that Jesus will say, thank you for showing mercy. Abe, maybe you can tell us some ways that folks can join death penalty action and some of the other stuff we're doing right now.
Sure. Well, I'm sharing my screen here, I think, as it's showing up. And can you see it?
No, but I think that's where we're getting the
I'm
echo
having
from.
trouble looking at it.
Let's just go ahead and tell them about it.
I would just let's see here. How do I stop the share? There we are.
Charge to stop.
Okay. Has the echo stopped?
No, it's happening on your end.
Let me just see if I can figure it out.
All right, I'm just going to mute you for a second there, Abe. So I'm getting it too. So I think it's time for us just to say, hey, go to deathpenaltyaction.org. You'll see the link there for March4Mercy.
May love be a reverberating echo in your ears and in our streets. May it just keep echoing love.
You're the only
Hallelujah.
one not echoing, Shane. I don't know how you make that magic happen, but you figured it out. Well, look, this is ongoing work. Abe, Shane, thanks for all your organizing of this. It's really, really important and really great. So, all right, the echo's gone now. I think it was actually coming from your channel.
Am I still echoing?
No, you got it. You're fine, Abe. If you want to share something.
So what I wanted to say is just I was going to show you at deathpenaltyaction.org. Right at the top, there's a links to different things, including petitions to help stop executions, and all of the ones that we talked about and more. There's action you can take on the federal death penalty. There's a link straight to the Free Melissa Lucio page, and we can talk about Melissa Lucio and that case, which is a big, big thing right now. You've probably heard about it in the media. And also, there's the March4Mercy webpage, which is something that continues to evolve. It explains everything. It gives you the details. There's a button to register with it. There's also information about sponsoring the event, and anybody that makes a donation at whatever they'll send you. Doug, I sent you the artwork in an email here, finally uploaded. You could put that up and share. I wanted to show that when Shane was talking about Jesus being executed and all that, because it's a picture of Jesus in the electric chair. And that's the T-shirt that we've organized and are creating, and that's available to people who want to help sponsor this, and you can be walking out with that, but we won't be able to get it to you. And those are some of the things. The place to be is deathpenaltyaction.org, and there's lots of different ways to engage.
We're bringing you back on, Shane. There you go.
That's right. Well, we'll see y'all. Yeah, and let's keep fighting for life. I mean, it is an interesting time where a majority of Americans want to see the death penalty abolished. They want to see alternatives to it. Tennessee it's my home state, and I know it will be so much more beautiful after we stop executing people. So find out what's going on in your state, because this is a statewide by state campaign as well as a national campaign for abolition. We're also asking Joe Biden and the administration to demolish the federal death chamber in Indiana. So there's a federal battle to abolish and demolish the death chamber in Indiana, and there's also a statewide campaign for mercy and grace and alternatives to the death penalty. So we'll see y'all on Easter. Join us in person or online. Thanks, Doug, for the conversation today, bro.
Right. Hey, see y'all. Thanks, Abe.